Beautiful people of YouTube. I missed you guys yesterday. Can't believe it's hump day already. And I'm going to talk first because there are some things that I have talked about, guys, regarding 4chan. And this is something I have never shared before. Maybe you saw it elsewhere, but I highly doubt that people have talked about this very specific post. Back in the day, remember, 4chan was wild, right? If you guys are as obsessed as I have been with this case, you guys know we were like all over the internet. And what's crazy is that now, 2.5 years later, guys, this 4chan post is hinting at what we now know, right? That we don't know if Brian was, first of all, involved or not. You know, his DNA was supposedly found on the sheet, but now Ann Taylor and the defense is saying, oh, I think you guys planted it. And then we have the two unknown male DNA that now we know was actually found at the crime scene. So it's a little bit concerning to me that we have this post that was shared on 4chan. It was like 3 days after the murder, guys. 3 days after the murder, a creepy ass 4chan poster was posting on 4chan. There was also some people posting on Reddit. So I want to share that with you guys. I'll just give you a couple of minutes to join me. And we're going to talk about this post, right? Of course, reminder, guys, this is definitely, most definitely speculation. I don't want you to go and run with it and take things out of context, because at the end of the day, it's like, we're just doing the math here. We're just putting things together. And this post, we'll get there, right? So for those of you guys who are already here, thank you guys for joining me in the chat today. I'm just getting in from work. Water, because I am a scientist. I always like to add, not always, but whenever I remember, I buy these things and then I forget, a drop of methylene blue. How cool is that? If you have ever worked in a lab, you know what this is. Probably this is consumption grade methylene blue. So never do anything I do, by the way. Stay safe out there. Don't ever copy me. This is supposed to be great for you. And I think it's one of the reasons that I look a lot younger than I am, right? Probably this, and I do eat really healthy as well. So cheers. If you guys have ever had methylene blue water, let me know. Let's get right into this post, guys. So this is what the 4chan post says, right? And as we're going through this post, please remember, this was posted 2.5 years ago, literally days after the crime. And now I just want you guys to make those connections 2.5 years later, because there is, in my opinion, a lot of hidden truth in these posts. And what's most concerning to me, it's like, who is actually posting this stuff, right? Who was it? I want to know who is hiding behind a laptop, who's hiding behind their keyboard. It says, I have it on good authority because a cousin is a cop in a nearby town, but called in to help in Moscow once school started back up. Apparently, the investigation is looking directly at the Sigma Chi frat party Ethan and Xana attended from 8 to 9 p.m. that night. He did not have any update on their timeline after they left 9 to 1:45, but did say it looks like the investigation is honing in on 2 suspects from the party. Interesting, because that kind of matches our 2 unknown male DNA that were at the house. We know that this DNA comes from blood fluid, and we also now know that Maddie has allegedly 3 sources of DNA under her nails. One of those could be hers, but the other 2, it's like, well, who do they belong to? And why was somebody on 4chan telling us that in the early days, they were honing in on 2 suspects from the party that night, and an update should publicly name them by the end of the week. But that did not happen. Interesting how that did not happen. Interesting how, since back in the day, according to this random 4chan poster, there were 2 suspects from the party that night. And that party involved Sigma Chi. When I've made my videos on Sigma Chi, guys, you guys know fraternities, sororities, they go back way back, right? And they are very protective of each other, even in cases where people do horrible things. So it's just something to keep in mind. And I just think it's so freaking weird that this person is saying, look, this person is probably, these two people from this Sigma Chi party are suspects and they're going to be named by the end of the week. But instead, they found 2 sources of blood DNA in the house from 2 unknown males, which matches this post. Wow, it's like magic, right? And then on top of that, we know that there was no focus on any 2 suspects from the party, that instead this was dragged out until the end of December when they apprehended Mr. Koberger, right? Find it very suspicious, right? This poster continues to say, Sigma has made their socials private and removed all info from Facebook going back a few years. They believe Ethan and Xana were the main targets, stemming from an argument that night. Downstairs, survivors could hear 2 males rummaging through the room above them. Figured it was an after party. Remember, this was posted a few days after the murder. So they're already telling us here bits of what we have now heard to be true, right? We now know that according to the documents, according to Dylan, she did hear somebody that was at the home. This matches that. This is saying that they heard 2 males rummaging through the room above them. How did this poster know, right? Well, the poster is saying that they know because they have ties to law enforcement. Figured it was an after party, locked the doors, and went to bed. When they discovered them in the morning after 30 minutes before the 911 call, they called their friends at Sigma to come over, who in turn called the police. This also matches that. This also matches that. This was posted days after the crime, guys. Do you understand what this means? Do you understand that it's very concerning because they are telling us a lot of truth? A lot of truth. Now we know. Back in the day, this was speculation. Now we know that this actually happened, right? And this is saying that actually no, that actually these 2 survivors discovered their roommates in the morning. But instead of calling 911, what did they do according to this post? Nope, they called Sigma to come over instead. So what am I supposed to believe? What are we supposed to believe as our little YouTube family? Are we supposed to believe that 99% of this post magically turned out to be accurate except for this portion? And is that why that 911 call is sounding kind of fake, kind of acted out, in my opinion? Is it because they had already ran into their roommates 30 minutes before they called 911? That would kind of make sense, right? But if this is true, it just paints a very different picture of the roommates, right? Definitely a very different picture from what we have been led to believe, you know, the narrative that they were in shock, that they were frozen, that they couldn't do anything, that they didn't know what to do, that they were just children, right? This is saying that instead they said, F this, we're not calling the cops. No, we're not gonna do that. Let's call the fraternity. Let's call Sigma Chi. And that is something that we also need to talk about. That's a whole other video regarding fraternities, because this is common in fraternities and sororities, guys. A lot of the times they're told, like, if something horrible happens, they're like, oh, just get your fraternity involved. We need to be involved before law enforcement is. And I don't know about you, but that's a little shady, especially concerning Sigma Chi and all of the fraternities and sororities at U of I, right? We have seen so many young people pass away in very strange circumstances, and it's concerning. It's concerning. The post continues to say, the back door was left open, one dead in bed, and the other blocking their room door with their body. Again, another truth that we were told by some random poster 2.5 years ago, just days after the crime. How did they know that there was a roommate blocking the door with their body? Right? Police just updated their Facebook to reiterate that they are not looking into the activities of that night, only the murders, which to me suggests something went on, fight, drugs, etc., and spilled into anger later that night and got them killed. This is strange because this was actually a post that Moscow Police Department really did put on their Facebook, right? They did say that they were actually not looking into activities of the night, which is like, why would you not look into the activities of that night? Again, if you're actually trying to solve the crime, does it not make sense to look at everything that took place that night? Because that's how you would find the people who committed this horrible crime. And I am saying people because now we know that there are two sources of unknown male DNA. Both of those sources come from BLOOD. The post also says, also didn't want to release profile they created as it would cause undue fear in the community, i.e. Greek life. Again, this very ancient post on 4chan is telling us everything that we already know. Most of us here already understand that they were really trying to change the perception of the beginning of this crime, that they were making it seem like Greek life is, we don't want to scare Greek life. We don't want to scare our students. We definitely do not want to instill fear in our community members, because I don't think it's so much because they care. I think it's more because without the students there, the locals, they would have a very difficult time surviving, right? Because that's where most of their money comes from. And as early as this was posted, how did they know about this profile already? How did they know about two unknown male DNAs? It's almost as if it was somebody that was directly involved in this, right? And yes, for those of you joining, this is all coming from a post that was on 4chan. That is speculation, but in my opinion, the fact that this post was so accurate, here we are 2.5 years later, I'm more concerned about the roommates, because that's not a good look for the roommates. It's not a good look for the roommates, where everything else was correct, and now we're being told by the same person that the roommates actually knew what was going on. The roommates found the bodies, allegedly, according to this post, 30 minutes prior to calling the cops, that they instead decided to call the frat boys. That's not cool. And I do remember, guys, when this first happened, there was like some community page that I was following from Boise, okay? They were posting all these updates on the crime, and it was Sunday afternoon that there was like a homicide in Moscow the night prior, and this was before anybody had any sort of details, before they had announced victims. And I remember, as clear as I can remember, there was a woman, right, a mother of somebody who attends U of I, and that they were commenting on a post saying that there had been a stabbing, that my son attends a frat there and lives across the street, and apparently a few people got stabbed. The frat party turned wrong. The guy got mad and stabbed them. And I have not been able to find that original post. I believe that I have screenshots saved somewhere. It's just so much digging. So when I do find them, if I do, I will share those with you. But I just wanted to know if anybody else had seen that, right? And it's funny because when I go back to that that community page, it's like as if nothing existed, as if nothing had been put out there. Everything was literally removed. And it just sounds like there was the most truth in these original posts by a lot of locals, by a lot of people who were one way or another involved with people like from U of I, right? There was a lot of truth. And then we got all these lies from the news. When the news broke, it was like lies and different theories. And now it's all matching. Those are what we know now, is matching all of those original posts, right? So many bits of truth. And it's just things that stick out to you, right? And they stick out to me now. And I want to talk about those because there are so many guilters that are saying, Nika, but why do you keep defending Brian? Again, I keep defending Brian because the DNA that was tested at the lab was found to be inconclusive. And we have BLOOD from 2 other men at the house. We have Maddie with 3 sources of DNA under her nails. We can't just pretend that this was all Koberger. We have to look into every bit of DNA from 2 other men, DNA from BLOOD at the house, at the crime scene. We can't just pretend that that doesn't exist. That would be idiotic, right? And this also just makes sense why in the very early days, guys, Moscow PD, and every time there was an interview, the cops, they were so ambiguous about the whereabouts of Xana and Ethan. A lot of people were asking and they never really were very direct, right? And when people had questions about the timeline between the party and the arrival at home, thinking about the timeline, so it just would not make sense that they were asleep, right? Also, if some guys from the party went over there and, you know, shanked him or whatever, surely more people would go on over there to see what was going on, right? Yes, the 4chan post, I just saw a fleeting comment in the chat that the 4chan posts are archived. Yes, they are, and I have screenshots of all of those. I'm not talking about the 4chan posts that are archived. You can always usually track back those things, like in the Wayback Machine, of course. That's like, most people should know that, right? Most people, I would hope. The Wayback Machine, guys, for those of you who don't know, the Wayback Machine is like where the internet keeps everything, because we know that there's nothing really ever deleted in the internet, so you can use the Wayback Machine. What I am talking about is community pages from Idaho, from Boise, from Moscow on Facebook and such. Those type of pages where the original posts that were put out by community members, those were deleted, those were retracted. And yes, there are ways still to retrieve that data, but somebody like regular person like me and you could not have access to that, right? It would have to be somebody who works for Facebook to be able to access that. So how are you guys doing in the chat anyway? It's silly for us to pretend that nothing happened at that party. We have heard it from so many locals. We have heard it from posters on Reddit, posters on 4chan. Something happened at that party. We have now this 4chan post that I'm sharing with you guys saying that the victims knew there were 2 other people, that they heard 2 other people in the house, that they found 2 sources of male DNA at the crime scene. And we are supposed to pretend that nothing led up to this, that this was just some random person wanting to commit a crime. Statistically, that doesn't make sense, okay? Something very well could have happened at the party or at a previous party, or Ethan could have called somebody out for being creepy or doing something bad to one of the girls. I feel like, at least the vibes, I hate that word, you know, the vibes that I get from Ethan are one, that he was very protective of the girls, of the women that were with him. And I could see him trying to call somebody out for being creepy or doing something to one of the girls that was just like out of line. And I've talked about my experience. You guys know I have a pile of degrees. Like, I have a pile of degrees, and I attended a lot of universities. And you get to interact with sororities and fraternities. And let me tell you, I don't recommend anybody ever join a fraternity. Do not let your children join frats or sororities, even if they try to brainwash and tell you your child's going to be better off. You know, it's going to look so good on the resume. I don't think it's worth it. There's so many kids that end up unalived because of all the things that happen at these fraternities, okay? Just gonna go to the chat, guys. I really have been wanting to share this 4chan post because there's so much information that 2.5 years later, it's like, oh my God, yeah, it all happened the way that these 4chan posts predicted or had speculated, right? So, who's in the chat, guys? I'm pulling it up. My crap top is being really slow. Hi, Hoppers. Hello. Hi, Dark Square. Hello, Sleuthy Kitty. Hi, Nikki. Hello. Yes, there's a wonderful community here. We get like random people, you know, sometimes being weird, but most people are really good. I think the pigs are involved. Honestly, yeah, that was one of my initial theories. Of course, I have a lot of theories, you guys know that, but like, that was one of my theories, and maybe not directly involved, but seeing this 4chan post, seeing that it's very likely that two other men, at least two other men were involved in this homicide, in this horrific crime, and now we have the DNA to back that up. And now we see this post saying that they were supposed to originally focus on these two, and then we saw that pivot, right? They pivoted immediately. It took them much longer to create the profile and then focus on Brian Koberger. Why did that pivot happen? I personally sometimes wonder, as I'm drifting off to sleep, is it because somebody paid off the police? You know, somebody wanted something done. If it's a powerful person with a child in Sigma Chi, or maybe some president of some university that wants a very clean resume, that he doesn't want a bad track record regarding the fraternities, the sororities, why wouldn't you pay somebody off? Why wouldn't you want that buried deep, right? Because that would really impact how many students come to your university. That would impact parents saying to their children, you are not going to that school. You know, there are so many things that have happened with the fraternities, so many young people disappearing, unalived, horrible things. Do you think that that's plausible? Hello, Don, welcome. Heron Schadenfreude. But again, if X and E were the primary targets, why go upstairs? M was a main target too, according to 4chan. Yes. But it all kind of fits, right? According to the 4chan theory, everybody was a target because those things that were being said at the party regarding the frat boys, right? Everybody was a target except Kaylee. They called her tits, and they said she was just a body that was there, and they happened to get in the way, basically, but she was allegedly not a target, which is interesting because that's the opposite that we are being told by the Gonsalves, right? Hello, Kellyanne. And that's what's worrisome, Kellyanne, right? There are so many untrustworthy people involved. It's really hard to pull things apart. But guys, when you follow the money, I don't know. Dan says not mathematically possible. 4chan just coincidence. I think it's actually mathematically possible, because literally if you break down, I should give it to my friends. He's a mathematician, guys. He got his PhD when he was only 21. So I should give this down and be like, what are the statistics for this? Because this 4chan poster literally just said everything right, right? The body's blocking the doors, the 911 call, the everything. So I should give it to him and he should do a breakdown for me. I think it's very mathematically possible. Jazz King, woohoo, made it. Hello. Welcome, Jolie Brown. The frats believe protecting the organization is more important than protecting the individual. Yes, they do. And that's what I'm saying is very problematic. That's why I wouldn't want my children to join fraternities or sororities, because at the end of the day, for me, that's not the ethical or the moral thing to do. Like, if these two actually found their dead roommates 30 minutes before and their first thought was, let me call the fraternity because I don't want to get in trouble, what kind of human beings are we raising? I think dark, sinister ones, right? Musical Contessa, hello. Can I just tell you what happened pretty much? Exactly, right? Hello, the funeral parade. Welcome. Right on, Nika. You're spot on once again. Those roommates are scandalous, druggy liars, just like the victims. I hate it that people are this way nowadays. Heck no, they didn't tell on themselves. And I feel like this is, I'm not going to pinpoint any generation. I'm just going to say, guys, like, I don't know, is our youth like completely messed up or what? What is going on? This is not, when I was growing up, this was not typical, right? If one of our friends got in trouble, or like when I was in college, if we went out to drink or to dance or whatever, we made sure that we came back with our entire group of girls or boys or whatever. We try to look out for one another. But what I'm seeing across the board, and I have covered other cases involving different fraternities across the country, it's abnormal. It's sickening. It's disturbing to me. And it's also scary because as a parent, it makes you not want to send your kids to university, because it's like people, the youth just stop giving a damn, right? It's like looking out for number one. Oh my gosh, Reese, I escaped a home invasion in 88. I was precise when I called 911. I was arrested, acquitted, barely 18. Nobody still has any sympathy for me. I'm so sorry you went through that. That's got to be traumatic, right? Aunt Boo Boo, the 4chan post has a lot of info. The only thing that always struck me as fake is the fact that it specifically says CODIS. Someone that age would say the system or something like that. And that's what's really odd, right? It's like they had such a close timeline. This was just one of the 4chan posts, by the way, that I just read off to you guys. Everything in there was basically accurate. Now we know. But this is only one of the 4chan posts. I've shared several others, and the timeline is right on. Right? It almost is as if it were written by somebody who was directly involved in the crime, or by somebody who was a cop, is a cop. Kellyanne, Kaylee's father stating early on Jack D's DNA was there. Yeah, I remember that. Whiskey Girl says, I don't know if BK was or was not involved. I will say, I don't think it was only one person involved. They need to test any and all DNA that was in the house, even with it being a party house, right? And that used to be my original thought. I was like, well, we don't know Brian. I don't know what he does for fun. He could be a weirdo. He could be a creep. I don't know him. But until we see the evidence, and so far we have seen nothing except DNA that is inconclusive, yet the guilters have forgotten how to use their neurons, their brain cells, and are pinning everything on this man who was probably not involved whatsoever. Is there a possibility he was involved? Of course there is. Of course there is. But until we see any evidence, right? And yes, We have seen Detective Payne lie right on the stand in court. We have seen Detective Mary lie on the stand. We have seen Detective Payne lie in the early PCA just to get a signature from the magistrate judge. That tells you what type of law enforcement members we are dealing with here. We're dealing with really bad apples. We can't just discount that, right? So Payne has committed perjury many times. Yes, Dan. Musical Contessa says, Mrs. Gonzalez herself stated in a publicized interview that Kaylee's cousin stated there was a party and a shooting, right? So we are supposed to believe that that's the first thing that the Gonzalez heard, right? That their two daughters, well, one daughter, but Maddie, because they refer to her as a daughter, that there was a shooting. Let me know in the chat, please. What is your first reaction if you hear that your child has been shot or that the house that they are staying at has been shot up? What would be your first reaction? Okay, everybody's different, but I'm gonna tell you what I would do. I'm gonna get in my vehicle and fucking fly there, right? I'm gonna be speeding. I'm gonna be driving very fast to get there and to figure out what the fuck is going on. Because that's what a parent would probably do. It doesn't matter if you have a rash or shingles. Oh, but it's very severe. Bitch, I'm a medical professional. I'm literally a scientist. I know what the shingles do, okay? Stop trying to persuade me that just because some father of some victim was allegedly at the ER that night because of some outbreak. We're supposed to believe that? Really? We're supposed to believe that some parent here decided to go to the ER versus drive to go see this house that had been shot up where his daughter and his best friend's or daughter or best friend of his daughter were supposedly shot up? You're just gonna go to the ER instead? Make that make sense. And again, I don't care, right? What you guys, if you can disagree. I've had a lot of people disagree and try to defend him. That's cool. I don't care. Defend him. You're not gonna hurt my feelings, babe. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. But I'm just saying, most parents, mothers, fathers as well, will be driving as fucking fast as possible to get to their daughter's house. Right? Isle of View. Who is Isle of View? I don't think I've ever seen that name in the chat before, and they keep retracting messages. Are you okay, Isle of View? Are you good in the chat, babe? Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, some people have some what I like to call common sense. GMAPT says race to my kid's house. Reese. When I hear people take credit for raising another person's child, I think of it as stolen valor. Oh my God, that's hilarious because I don't know how involved the G fam was as far as like raising Maddie, but I don't know. I feel like Maddie's mom, she seems like such a sweet woman, right? I get such good vibes when I've seen her. And I feel like Maddie's mom was very involved. I feel like Maddie and her mom were very close. I feel like Maddie was, you know, regardless of the situation her father was in, it looked like she had good relationships with both of her parents, right? Her mother and her father. So when I hear the G family also like, that was like my daughter to me, you know, it is a little odd. It's a little odd. GEM-apt. How do you say that? Gem-packed? Gem-apt? Kaylee told her parents that she was being stalked by a cop. They tried to place that stalking on BK. And we've all heard about the stalking. So I would love to go to Moscow because I know damn well that interview. You guys know what interview I'm talking about. The one with the vape shop owner. It's out there, guys. Okay, it's on YouTube. It's on the news. What did he say? He said that Kaylee was often with female friends, that they would kind of basically be with her to protect her from some stalker. I want to go and ask him, who was this stalker? I have a feeling he knows. Kaylee must have mentioned it. It sounded like she went there very often. It sounded like he was close, you know, at least with the interactions. It sounded like they were customers there often. I want to ask the owner of the vape shop, did she ever mention? Did you ever ask? But I'm sure that if the answer would be, well, it was a cop that was stalking her, he probably wouldn't want to say it on live TV, right? Because they probably would be unsafe. And you guys who had followed me for like a decade now on YouTube, I've had multiple channels. You guys know I've shared some stories about being stalked by cops. It's happened. It's happened. All because they want to get my number. All because they want to know where I live. One tried to arrest me, right? And then I was like, my daddy is a lawyer, bitch, and he backed the fuck up, right? But it's not that far-fetched. Women get stalked by cops all of the time. I always tell you guys, this is a piece of advice for everybody who's watching right now. Take it or leave it. If you live in a state where you are allowed to have a state ID without your address, because some states do allow that, get a state ID without your address. You are going to save yourself so much trouble, especially if you're an attractive, conventionally attractive female, because this is what a lot of cops do. If you're a conventionally attractive female, they don't care if you're married, they don't care if you turn them away. They take your ID, they use whatever stupid, lame excuse to pull you over, and then you show them that ID, and now they have your address, and now they know where you live. So if you live in a state where you are allowed to remove your address, remove it as quickly as possible. Nowadays, I try not to even show my state ID. I try to show my veteran's ID. It shows my name, my social, my date of birth, but it doesn't have my address. Like the retiree, military retiree ID, doesn't have that information. Do it for your safety. If you have daughters, if you have beautiful daughters, or handsome men. Men have also been stalked by cops before, so. Stacy says, but I am not attracted to cops. And so many women are. Just weird sidebar, and they have hit on me. All my experiences, not all, 90% of my experiences with police officers have been negative. They've been sexually attracted to me, and they're trying to stalk me. Is that the experience for everybody? Of course not. So I have a very biased view on police officers. And not every cop, the cop could treat the women differently. For example, I reported a cop to his officer, and he got in trouble, right? For stalking me. I had recorded everything, the whole incident. So he got a little slap in the hand. But then I mentioned his name to somebody who lives in the area near me, and I was like, you know this cop? She had an issue where she had to get the cops involved, and she had a completely different treatment. In my opinion, it's because she's not conventionally attractive. I think she's still beautiful, but conventionally attractive, she is not. So the cop did not harass her. The cop helped her. Whereas for me, it was a different experience. So just because somebody treats you a certain way doesn't mean that they're going to treat everybody the same way, right? And let's face it, these three girls were conventionally attractive, right? They were. Nikki, I'm so sorry. Stacy, my friend, got involved with the cops. She left a uniform, and it's ruined her life. Terrible. I'm so sorry for your friend. Regina says what they never showed in the beginning was a dumpster guy and footage all the way up to past 5 in the morning. BK was also stalked. A lot of info. I'm sorry, Hoppers. You said you have so many issues with police in the UK, certainly abusing their positions. And you guys know I have a psych degree as well. One thing to take away from this video as well, this is kind of, tangent. This is a side conversation here, is that people who are in positions of power are more likely to have narcissistic traits, sociopathic traits, psychopathic traits. And that just means that they're going to use the system to benefit them and to do the dark deeds. A lot of people are attracted to positions of power because they want to take advantage of other people, right? That's not me saying that. That's the data. That's the science. Psych statistics. So either way, guys, let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know if you had already heard about this very interesting 4chan post that was shared 2.5 years ago, and now everything that was mentioned in that post was accurate so far. The only thing that we have left to be sure that it was actually right is, did Dylan, did Bethany actually discover their roommates 30 minutes before they called 911? Because that's what this post is saying. This post is saying that's what they did, and that instead they called the fraternity. And this post is also mentioning 2 males, which matches our current DNA. 2 sources of unknown male DNA coming from BLOOD at the crime scene. So let me know what you thought about this video. Make sure you leave a comment, leave a like, and methylene blue for the win, right? Cyrus stated in court that he will be able to see all the calls and texts in the area prior to and after. Whew, Cyrus, that's the good man. That's a good man. You guys take care now. Bye-bye. Oh, also, thank you guys for all the super chats. And I think I've already said this a couple times, but also thank you guys to those who have donated for the veterans. I did post in the community section of YouTube here a picture of the veteran, because we gave him $500, because a lot of us veterans get turned away by the VA, right? So it's like we do all this stuff because we want to help our country, and then it doesn't matter, right? We get turned away, we get kicked out, we get thrown to the curb. So the fact that we came together and raised $500 for somebody who's struggling financially, it's awesome. So thank you guys. I couldn't do this without you, right? So take care, guys.